Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is going to be the third part of our travel marketplace app series. And in this video, we will be implementing the sign in flows. And along with that, we'll also implement integration of Ktor Client. So without wasting any time, I'll straight away jump to the code. But before going there, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe and like the video. So let's just get started. Okay, so the first thing that I'll be doing is that I'll load my CMP app in the like you remember in the first video we set up the architecture for the project and all. And in this video we will be implementing the Ktor client and some UI screens and all that. So we'll do all the things, but first thing first, the first thing is that we will be creating a new branch from this, and I'm gonna use I'm gonna say part part 3 slash authentication. Okay, now once you do that, we have this thing done. Now the first thing that we need for like the first ever thing that we'll be doing is basically we'll create the sign in and sign up screens. So let's just get started with that. So I'm gonna go back to the Android Studio, and in the Compose main app, you remember we have this listing section like this. I'm gonna do a little bit of changes into this. So the first thing is that I'm gonna create a package, and that package should be UI. Now inside the UI class, I'm gonna create a Kotlin file, and I'll name it as the login screen. Okay, this is going to be a file. Now I'm gonna use that and still be saying composable like this. And the next thing would be to create a login screen. And no, we don't want to send any sort of callback to the previous screen or anything. We'll be doing these things over here. Okay, so the login screen is done there. Now we need to create some sort of design. Now if you go back to the design section, you will see that we have this extra spacing from the top, which is the system spacing, and we also should have some spacing from the bottom as well for the navigation. And once we are done with that, then we can basically start working on the rest of the design. So basically we need to have some spacing from top and bottom. This spacing, not the extra spacing after that, the spacing that basically covers the time and all that. So I'm going to show you how we can do that right now. Let me just create a column for the better understanding of this. So I'm going to creating a column, and that is basically be column. I'm going to say modifier is equals to modifier dot fill size. And also let's add some background to this. I'm going to add a red background. Now once we are done with that, now let me just use this login screen over here instead of this. I'm going to use this, import that, and we'll run it on Android because I already have the emulator running like this. Okay, so the emulator will run this, and when it's run, you will see that the red color is going to the top. Like you see, it's covering this. So let's say if I try to draw something, it will be taking that space as well, and it might be overlapping it. So to fix that, what you can do is that you can create a scaffold. Okay, the scaffold is just same thing. We'll just be using this inside that, and also we'll be adding some padding into this. So once we add this padding as IT, the IT comes from the scaffold, which basically gives us the spacing from top and bottom. Now let me just rerun this. Now when you run that, you will see that we left some spacing from top and from the bottom as well. So that's that. Now I'm gonna get rid of that the background that we have. So we are there, we good from there. Now, so basically you will see that we'll find a lot of things like that. For example, over here we need some spacing that is basically perhaps 16, and then for this one there is this, the spacing is quite a lot, right? So you see that this distance between this is 40, but this over here it's basically just 16 or like 8. So we need to fix these kind of things as well. So For that, if I keep on creating one item and use the spacer, the default spacer that the system provides, definitely it's customizable, but I'm gonna use it mostly for just spacing. So for that, I'm gonna create a package and let's just call it widgets. Okay, and this widgets is going to be the first Kotlin first class that I'm gonna use over here is basically the spacer class file, sorry, and then over here we'll be creating a composable, and that is going to be function uh, Travnor spacer. Okay, and then we'll be using the size as the dp size. Let's import that, and you're gonna use spacer modifier dot size as size. Okay, like let's use this. Okay, now once you do that, the Stravnor spacer will help us with creating all that. So I'm going to go over here, and the first thing that I need is basically I need a Travnor space with 16 dp. So I'm going to use this. Just import that. The next thing that we have is basically we have a header or we have a title, and the title says sign in. Sorry, we have a back button. So we have a back button on the right section, and it basically is just a circular button with a arrow in the back. So we'll go over here and let's just use that as a button. So we need an arrow. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use the uh, material icons that we have. So for that we need this dependencies. So let's just go to the versions.toml file, and over here I'm going to add this material extended. We definitely need this version for that. So I'm going to copy that, paste it over here. Now the material extension icons is there. And now we'll go over here to the build.gradle file and the common main. Over here, I'll add this and we'll sync it. The benefit of adding this is basically it will give us some icons that we can use. So we don't have to import the icons and all. So we'll just wait for this to build. Okay, so now that's there. Now we go over here into this, and so now over here I'm gonna use image, and that is going to be icon. So I'm gonna say image vector is equals to icons dot default dot arrow back, and for content description we'll be using back arrow. Is there anything that's left? Okay, we don't need this. Instead, like this. Okay, the image is there, but we need some more stuff as well. Rather than the adding this the padding, I'm gonna use a size, and let's use or say that is basically 48.dp. Okay, also you can also define a clip for that, and then I'm gonna say round circle shape, so that it basically gives that circle vibe. And then we also background as well, we can also say as what color should we use. I'm going to use material theme dot color scheme dot background dot, we're going to say surface dot copy alpha, and that is going to be 0.2f. Okay, so I'm just adding a slightly basically lighter background to this, and by end of that I'm going to add some padding so that it just doesn't fill the whole image. So I'm going to use a.dp for that. Now I think we should be good. Now let's just try running it and see if what we wanted is actually basically shown to us as well. Okay, now it's there. You see, we have this, the arrow icon is there, but it's not clickable, and the background is also not visible. Perhaps it's because the on surface we should use on surface, perhaps. But there's one thing, like if we keep on using these kind of things, we'll definitely be working on the theme and background for that as well. But for now, if we keep doing this and keep running it, it will be a lot of time. It will take a lot of time. So I'm gonna use another annotation over here, and that is going to be the preview. Okay, and we'll be showing as show background for that as well. Let me just import that. And now we're going to say function login screen preview. And now we'll just rebuild it. We're going to use this so that we can see the preview. And now you can see that we saw the we have the preview now. And I'm going to use 0.1f so that it's slightly lighter. This is something like that. Okay. And we also want to pad it from the start. So I'm going to use padding as 16 dp so that it leaves some spacing. And once you are doing this, I believe we don't need that. Now I think we are good on the first image section for this. Now this image is there. Now there are two things we can do. One way is basically, one is this, that we have already have this. Second thing is that we might need this in the other screen. This background image, this background icon might be used in different screens as well. So what I can do is that I can reuse this. I can take this out from here, and this basic configurations that we have, we can implement that in the widget section. So I'm gonna get over here and create one more class file, and that file should be buttons. And now over here you can say uh, composable again, and let's call it function Travnor circle image button. Okay, and now it basically needs an on click, and also along with that it should also say as icon. For now let's just use int as a resource, but we'll change it. I just forgot what is there that they use. Now over here, once you do that, I believe the image vector is basically an image vector. So okay, we need to use an image vector over here. Now once we do that, you can see that it's basically, and you call it image vector for this. You can use one more similar one, but this time it's going to be painter resource. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to say, so I'm going to use painter over here and use this as painter. Over here we'll be using it as this. Okay, now you can also change the content description for that as well. Content description as string. We are not gonna use this. Okay, and like these kind of things. Okay, so what I'm doing here is basically I'm creating a reusable component so that I can use it later on, and these will help me with that. So instead I'm going to change it to content description, and this is going to be the image vector for this. And these stuff should be the similar. You can also have a modifier into this as well, and let's just take it to the start. Okay, like this. And if you want to have some extra functionality, you can always have a modifier like this, and instead of using this you can just add this. So whatever you pass from the there, it will be overridden by these kind of default paddings that you can have. And now we use the same approach over here as well, and also these two things should go above like this. Okay, now this one is that the content description should also be there as this, and the on click is not yet defined, so this is going to be clickable. Okay, and then or automatically you can say something like this, and we'll be calling it like this. Same for here. Now once you do that, now the circular image button is there. We are using that, so I'm gonna use this over here instead of that, and it uses this. Content description is there. The modifier is not needed anymore, so we can just get rid of that. But there is just one thing, something like this. modifier image vector content descriptions. Oh, okay, sorry, we need to change this to content, not context. Okay, now once you do that, now that this things goes and you still get this. Now later on, let's say if I want something different, I can use anything like, right, and it will be working as we want. So basically this is something that we did for the back button, and the on click functionality is there now. Now once I this time when I run it and when I click on it, you will see that there will be a click effect as well that we should see. Now when we click on that, you see there's a click effect. The ripple effect is also been seen. So that's done. We did a lot of stuff over here for on a one image, but I think this, since these things will be reusable, they will help a lot later on. Now we need the Travenor spacer, and that is going to be no 20.dps for this. And now we need a text, and the first thing that I need over here for the text is basically the text that we need, and I think that is login now or something. It says sign in now. Okay, so I'm gonna use this. So we'll say sign in now, and the color should not be red. No, we don't need the color to be red. And we take all these things inside the column. It should be inside the column, so we can see now. You see that the spacing is there, but the font size and all thing are very smaller, so we need to work on that. I'm gonna fill max width for this so it can do that, and also I'm gonna align the text text align, that is going to be center, text align dot center. That's that. Now we need to make the font size a little bigger, so we'll say something as maybe 22 dot, sorry, not 22, maybe 32.sp. So once we do that, you will see that the image size is bigger. Now we are good on that part. Next up is reuse one more, and instead of using it this, we'll just use the 16sp that we have. Also, we need to define the color for that as well. So again, I'm going to say material theme dot color scheme on surface, and that is going to be sign in now. We are not using the padding this time. It should be lower, right? Now if we go over here, it says please sign in to continue our app. Okay, so we'll just change that and say please sign in to continue our app. Now this is done. The first flow, or you can say the top flow, is there. It's ready. I believe it should also be just vertical so that it can leave some spacing from top. Now, not vertical, sorry, horizontal. Okay, and add padding as 16.dp to this so that it leaves spacing from all. Okay, now we are done there. Now the next thing would be again to add this spacer, and for the spacer, you'll see now the spacer is again, it's almost, something as 40. So 16 is already there. You can just add the rest of the spacing that you want. So we did the 64 dp is there. And next thing in the design is the layout, or the text field. Okay, so for the text field, you can see we have some rounded corners and with the same background as the image button. So we need to do something like this, and we might have some hints as well that we might want for this. So we'll do that. And for that, once again, what you can do for the start, you can say text field Okay, for the value, I'm not adding anything into this for now. Let's just use very simple and straightforward things like this. Now, once you do that, oh, come on. Why do I get myself outside that? Okay. Now you see, let me just open this. Now you see there are like text field is there, but it's not looking good. If I use the outline text field, it just give me some of it, but again the outline is just killing everything. So we need to figure out what we want to use. You can either use text field, right? And then they have you have so many. You have this basic one as well, which is basically doesn't have anything. It's just the basic text field without any sort of formatting and all that. I am gonna use the outline text field because that makes some things a bit easier for me. Okay, now we have this outline text field. It's there, but it's not how I want it. So I want to add some sort of clipping to this. So I'm gonna use clip, and I'm gonna use round corner shape, and inside that I'm gonna use 16.dp of rounded corner for that. Now you will see that it's basically the borders are getting out of hand, but we don't need that. I'm going to use the background for this. And for background, I'm going to use the surface variant. Okay. Perhaps you can add some alpha to that so that it's slightly lower, maybe zero point 0.1 or 0.2 looks good. Also, the rounded corner is quite a lot. We don't need that. Sorry. We don't need that. So we're going to make this. Okay, now we have this border, right? So we need to get rid of that border as well. So let me just try that. I'm gonna use comma colors is equals to outline text. Come on, outline text field default dot colors. And inside that you can say focused border color is equals to. We're gonna use the same color like this over here, and also for the unfocused as well we are gonna use this. Now once you do that, you will see that basically you don't have that, we just have the borders around that. Also, you might want some label as well for that. So for that, again, you can use a label, and it's a composable. So remember, you can use something like this. Rather than label, let's just use placeholders, which is basically kind of works as hints. So let's say if I empty this, you will see that there will be an email address and all that. When I remove that, you will see this. So I think that is that. And was one what else we can do? Perhaps you can also say modifier dot, sorry, not modifier. Instead, you can say font size, and we use 12.sp for this. So now let me just get rid of this. You will see now like this. Also, you can change the color to a bit light color. So I'm going to use material theme dot color scheme dot surface variant, and now the surface variant is a bit different. So now let's just get rid of this. You will see surface variant is not looking good. Instead, use surface. Come on, what was that? On background, I believe. Okay, and then copy alpha and make it 0.7 f. That will make it a little bit of lighter color. So I think that's we have something like this, and the text field looks okay to me. Like this should be the text field that we should be using. Now you know what we are gonna do, since we are going to use this quite a lot of time. So I'm gonna copy this from here, go to the widgets, create a new Kotlin file and call it Travnor borderless Travnor text field. Okay, and this is going to be file, and now what we are gonna do is that we are gonna copy that. You can say composable, and something like this. Okay, now I'll use this. So basically, there's something that I want to make this always change or editable and all that. So for that, if you go over here, you will see that there are so many options that you can use, and I'm going to use all these over here like this. Okay, and we'll make it part of this. Now basically the specific options, or like the options that we want, we'll basically add it just over here as a modifier like this. So like user can still update that, but for default we'll have this, and this is going to be just a modifier that we'll be using for this, and the value is going to be the value that comes from there. On value change is also going to be on value change that's come from the top, and the colors, again it's going to be colors, but right now you see there is a default color. Instead we're gonna change it to this. Okay, I saw that we don't need to clip it. We can instead use the shape over here. So you can change it to this instead and just get rid of the clip. Okay, what else is there? Yes, this title text should also go as the placeholder. Now the placeholder is a composable with an empty, like it's equals to empty. Instead, what we are gonna do is that we can change this from there to be this way, and then we'll reuse it over there. Now, now it's there. And what else? I guess the rest of the features can definitely be used, so we can always use those functionalities. For example, for shape, for enable, read only, leading, trailing, prefix, suffix, support. There should be nothing that's left. So we are reusing all of them. We'll definitely be passing some of them, not all of them. But yeah, let's just see now. Okay, I guess everything is there. The Traveler text field is there. Now we go to the login screen. Instead of using this, we'll pass this. Okay, and we need to pass the value. We don't need to pass this. Instead we can just pass the modifier, the default modifier that's there. For colors, we don't even need to pass anything because we're already using it there. And definitely we need to pass the placeholder because we want to see some sort of things. Now we need one more thing, I believe, that is horizontally we need to pass 16 dp, 16 not 18. I'll use this, and also fill max width for this. Okay, what is wrong here? Why is the modifier not picking up? Yeah, okay, I guess it's very okay that it's not taking this, because we need to add those values to the modifier over here instead of there. So oh, okay, let's just use this. Okay, now if I go back, and you will see everything is working as expected. We just need to do a little bit of changes. We don't need these things now. We just need to pass the modifier. That's it. Perfect. Okay, I guess there's just one thing I believe we need to add, and that is basically we need to clip that before background, so we don't have to, you know, use that. There are some corners that you see. Now once we do that, I guess now we should be able to get rid of those, and now you can see that it's looking really good. And that's basically pretty much what we want. So now we have this one field for the email. Now let's just use the other one that is going to be perhaps for the password, and there is no spacing in it, so let's just add that as well. uh, Getting over here, it's going to be 16 dp, not 32. Now we have pretty good email and password that's there. What's next? Now the password has some extra functionality. For example, it has this password icon, and also the text is not visible, so we need to implement that as well. So for that, what you can do is that you can get over here in the after the placeholder, not here, over here, and you can say visual transformation, that is equals to password visual transformation. Let's just import that, and you just switch that to this. Now if I add any text to this, you will see that it will be part of, basically be available as a come on, render it. Just wait for this. Now you see it's in a shape of stars, right? And also we want some trailing icon for that as well. So basically we can like visualize how the the image should be there. So for that, I'm gonna again use this. I'm gonna say vector resource, and drawable resource should be not vector resource, it should be image vector is equals to icons dot default dot use visibility, which will be this. And we also need to make sure that when there should be some way where a user can hide and show the icons and all. So for that, we need to implement something. So again, this time is going to be the password visibility. So I'm going to say wall password visibility is equals to remember mutable state of false. So initially it would be false, and now over here inside that section, now inside that, let's say if the password visibility is not shown, this means that you need to show this, else you are gonna say visibility off. Okay, and that is going to be password. Okay, just do one thing. Rather than this, I'm gonna say why bye. Now we should see this. Okay, so when basically the password is not visible, we'll be showing the visible icon, and when else we'll be showing the visibility off icon. And we also need to make sure that when user click on this, it should do the magic. So for that, I'm gonna use modifier something like this, and then you can say clickable, right, like this. And now over here, all we need to do is that I'm going to say password visibility is equals to not password visibility, and this is going to be var, so that we can change it. Now we need to import the setters as well. Now you see this is there. Perhaps we can use that 48, keep it 48, and we also add some padding, that is basically 8.dp, so that it looks maybe not 8, perhaps 10, or maybe 12, so that it's smaller. Okay, now user can click on that and it will be showing you the visibility based on that. Now one more issue that with this implementation is that when we set, like, enable this button, click on this button, the password should also be shown, and right now we are using just this one. So for this, once again, I'm going to say if password visibility is true, then we need to make sure that we set the visual transformation dot none, else you will be using the other one. And I think now it should be done. Let me just try running this. So now we'll run it and see on the emulator if it's basically working as we want it to work. Now you see, I click on that. When I click on that, I see the password. When I click again, it basically goes away. And this is basically how we want it, right? Which is cool. So this is done. The password implementation is done, and the email section is done as well. The next step is basically the forget password thing, and we need to have this blue text type which basically says forget password, and then we have a sign in button, and then after that we have this don't have an account etc. Okay, this is simple. This is pretty simple, I would say. all we need to do is that we need to create a text button. Text button on click is going to be straight away, and then we should be doing this. So we are good on that part. So the forget password is there. Now the next thing would be to create a button, and this is also again simple button, and it should be saying this. What's wrong? I believe that's okay. Now the button in the I believe, do I need this for I don't think so. We don't need to clip it. Perhaps that's also causing problem. Yeah. Okay, so now there's one problem with this this button is and that is basically one, the color is purple. We don't need that purple color. And also second thing is basically these rounded corners are too big. We need to reduce that to perhaps, and for that I believe we need to have a shape. And from over here I'm gonna say 12.dp. Once you do that, you should see a better, and we don't need this clip, so we get rid of that. Okay, now you see I have this thing ready. The sign in flow, sign in screen is there. There has, okay, so it also says don't have an account, and then with that you also see the sign up section, so we can add that as well. Now for that, what we need to do is that we need to create a raw, because there are two different things. So I'm going to use a raw, and I'm going to use the raw to be to cover the width and all. So I'm gonna use something as this. Okay, I believe it did the job. uh, there's just some certain stuff that we need to make sure that we center them, and also the vertical alignment should also be center vertically. Once you do that, you should see now that the sign in screen is ready. And now when I run it, you will see it looks something like this, which is how we want it. So I can add some, I definitely cannot add any item into this because there are some other issues. But other than that, I think the stuff is basically working. And this password is looking bad. It should not be like this. Instead, it should be just this section only. So for that, we can also use a raw. For the text button, where is the password icon? Password, forgot password button. This, like this, and I'm gonna use this for like this and get rid of the padding. And also we add a spacer modifier dot weight that 1f, so that it basically keeps it by the end. We don't need this horizontal and all, even not padding as well. Okay, now rerun this. We should be able to see the icon on the, come on, what just happened? Rerun this. Now you see, come on. Okay, sorry. We need to get rid of this. This time, hopefully it will work. This time it will not be. Yeah. Now you see everything is there. So basically the sign in screen is there. The text fields, we have basically created these text fields to be, reusable. And perhaps we can do the same for the button as well, because the button also have some sort of a little bit of change in the corner shapes and all. But since it's not that much, I believe we can keep it this way and change it manually. So okay, and what else is there? The next thing would be to basically create one more package, and let's call that sign up. We also, I forgot to create this package as sign in. I'm gonna place that over there. And now if you look into the sign up screen, there are a little bit more information that we require from the user. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna reuse this whole screen. I won't be implementing most of it, but definitely will change it to some extent. So let's just get over here, create a new Kotlin file, call it sign up screen, make it a file. And now we'll be creating a composable function sign up screen, and instead we'll be using something like this. Okay, and sign up, we need to change this to sign up as well, and we should change to this as well. Now we switch that and refresh it so we can see it again. Now we need to do a little bit of adjustments, right? First one is this sign in, it should be sign up. Okay, and then the next text is sign up, it should be sign, instead of sign in it should be sign up once again. Now we have password, email password, then we also need a confirm password as well, so I'm gonna reuse that right like this, and that is going to be confirm password. Instead I'm gonna just get rid of that so you can see what it is. Then what else is there in the designs? Where is the design? Okay, we have password and we have some section saying that this, we also need to get the name of the user, so we need to add that section on top as well, the first section before email. So let's just use that like this, and that should be full name. So this is the information that we can use: full name, email, password, and confirm password. And once again, this is basically just for this. Second thing is forgot password is not there because there is no section for that. And then we have a sign up button. And then the next thing is already have an account which can be converted into sign in. So let's just update that as well. Now the full name, email, password, confirm password is there. And the password visibility will work on all of them. So like if you click either one, it will be for both of them. Forgot password section, like I said, we don't need that, so we're gonna get rid of that. We need spacer at least, not the button, so let's just add that. Now in the button section, it should be sign up rather than sign in. I'm gonna use sign up, and already have an account, so I'm gonna say already have an account, sign in. Okay, and I think the screen is pretty much done now. I think we don't need anything else for this screen. Just get rid of that section that we have. The button, okay, now looking at this button, I feel we should add a little bit of more padding to the image. Rather than 8, it should be perhaps 12. Let's just try 12. I believe that will be much better. Yeah, that looks much better. So basically the UI part is done, and now what we need to do is that we need to implement the Ktor client side, which will basically help us get all these data. We'll definitely be implementing more stuff, for example the view models and all. And once we do that, we'll test it out if it's actually working, and if we are able to sign in and log in with the user, or sign up with the user as well. So yeah, let's just do that. And to do that, the stuff that we need is basically we need to integrate Ktor client. Right now we don't have the Ktor client on the app side, and for that what we need to do is that we need a couple of things. For example, let me just place it over here. We need some dependencies to be added here, and we'll reuse those dependencies over here so that you know we can use them. So let's just do that. So to do that, I need to fetch some dependencies. Okay, so inside this libs.version, what you need to do is that I'm gonna create Ktor implementation. Okay, and then over here we'll place some of this. We already have this coroutine core that is basically part of it, so we can get rid of this. Now what is this? We have content negotiation, we have a client for logging, we have a core which is the actual functionality. We'll be using Darwin for iOS, we'll be using OKHTTP for Android, and then we have Ktor serialization, Kotlin X, which basically for serialization. Okay, so these are the stuff we need. Now we also need to change this to this. Okay, now I need the version as well, so we'll get that version from here. Now I'm gonna place that version, that is 3.3.1, I believe. Okay, there's a updated version, so I'm gonna change it to updated version. And now let me just sync this. Okay, so now you see that we have this implementation done, and there is certain things that we need to do to implement so that we can reuse them. And now this is tricky, this is like, now this is interesting. Okay, so basically what we need to do is that we need to implement the data and sorry, the backend stuff, and the backend stuff should go to the data section. So basically if you go over here, you see there is just only these sections which basically have some core routines related stuff, and then some of the stuff related to the this. Now the data part should only be the one that basically handles the, you know, what kind of backend client, what kind of client we are using for the web services and all. So for that, what we are gonna do, I'm gonna take all these things and place it over here. Okay, and we'll just sync it. We just no Kotlin serialization. Okay, sorry, I just took a wrong entry, and we'll just sync this. Basically, once you sync that, this is done. So now this is done, and basically the Ktor basic implementation is there, but we need some platform specific things as well. And like I said, the data and domain should not be platform specific. It should always be the core implementation. The platform specific things should go to the platform specific stuff. So for that, what we can do is that we can go to the compose app section, build.gradle file. Now over here we don't have anything, it's all just the platform specific things. Okay, like for example, coin Android is there. For iOS we might have something else as well. So now over here we need to add a couple of things as well. So for Android over here, we'll basically add this OKHTTP client over here, this OKHTTP client. And we also need something for iOS main as well. So I'm going to say iOS mains dot dependencies like this. And then we need this client dot Darwin. Okay, so the Darwin goes to the iOS main section, and the Android main section should get the OK HTTP. What they do is basically they provide the platform specific client to this. It doesn't matter, like nothing else. Now you can just, you know, build this. Okay, so now that is done, and the next thing would be to basically go to the data section now. And inside that, over here you see we have the data source, which is the dummy data source. Previously it was this data source that was doing all these things. Now what we need to do is that we need to change this to something else, and I'm going to create Kotlin class, and I'm going to say remote data source. Go, and I'm going to say remote data source. Okay, and that is going to be a class which is cool, and also it needs something. For example, it will be needing wall, private wall, HTTP client, basically a Ktor client that will require. Okay, now this is basically what it requires. Now other than that, what we can do is that we can have some sort of basic URLs, like the basic stuff for that. I'm going to say wall, so I'm going to say wall, or you can say private wall base URL is equals to this, and it's for Android it's different. So I'm going to say http dot um, 10.0.2.2, then we have 8080 as in, you know, this. So basically this is my base URL, and then you can define the rest of the stuff. But basically the important thing over here that I need is basically I need to create function sign in. So this is basically a sign in function that we'll be using, and basically based on that we'll be implementing the rest of stuff. So basically this is done, this is this only. It's just, let's just focus on these things for now. Now This base URL is a problem because for Android it works like this, but for iOS we need to run it the way it is, like the 127.0.0 and all that. So how do we handle that? How do we do that? So basically, to do that, I'm gonna use dependency injection. The DI, the power of DI will be used over here. So I'm gonna use wall base URL as string, which is again going to be private in this case as well. And now this base URL should go over here as base URL to this. Okay. Now, for sign in, we need some sort of models like the request and response model. This is basically just a simple DTO that we have. But other than that, we need some models like the way we need, like the way backend is supposed to provide the data to us. So over here, I'm going to create a Kotlin class and call it user DTO. Okay, and that is going to be a data class like this. Now this data class should contain the user related stuff, and for that you need to go over here to the postman. And now when we go over here, you have this user, like this whole response section that you can use. So basically that's this. We get over here in the section, copy that, go over here, and in the model section we get over here Kotlin convert this and call that sign in response. Okay. And sign response, once you generate that, it will create a couple of things. For example, it created this user. This is the user. Let's call that user DTO like this. And now the sign in response should contain user DTO. Okay. So this is basically how the data is basically provided from the server, or how the data comes from the server. And the domain section might have a different way of handling this. So for over here, let's say we have a Kotlin class. Let's call that user model. Okay, and the user model should contain some extra information, like in the domain it should be different. So I'm gonna again create the data class. For now, what we need is that we don't need all these things. Okay, we don't need the is active section. I need ID as well. We might not need the phone or role because it doesn't matter in the app side. And we also, let's say we want the auth token inside this. Let's say, okay, just for the understanding. Now we got this auth token as well over here. Although we will not be using this auth token in the app side because it doesn't matter. It will be just the data source that will handle this. So just for your understanding, I'm just adding it and we'll just get rid of it later on. So now this basically user model is there, which is basically this. Data source is still uncooked and the sign in response is something like this. User is something like this. Okay. Now we get over here into the data source, and this basically gives us a result, and that result is going to be sign in response result. Okay. So this is basically how the system should work. Now inside that, what we can do, we also need a request. So we're going to say request, and that is going to be sign in request. And we don't have that request model over here. So we'll get over here into this. Let me just create a package and call it request. Inside that, let's just create a Kotlin again. Now I know that we need to pass up a proper JSON request into this. So I'm going to get this, call that sign in request. What I did, basically I copied the request from the postman. You can use the request from object from the Swagger API as well, that I showed you in the previous video. But yeah, that's something we did. Now once we do that, we have the sign in request ready, the sign up result ready, and now the next step would be to basically implement the results. Okay, so one more thing, I forgot that this sign in function should be suspend as well, because you don't want to run this on a main thread. Okay, now we have this section that basically, let me just get rid of this. We don't want to show something straight away. Okay, now we have this. Okay. What we did is basically we say return try catch, and then we basically say that if everything goes well, fine. If not, we can do something like this. Now, what we need is that we need to get a response from the server. For that, we have HTTP client, and then we'll be using post method. The post will basically be helping us with the making the call, and then we'll be saying the URL string, which is equals to the base URL. Okay, and along with the base URL, we need to define the endpoint, and define the endpoint again. We have to go to the Swagger or maybe the Postman, and from there you can find how the base URL can be created. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a private wall sign in endpoint like this. Instead, I'm gonna use this. So it goes for base URL, and along with that, it basically give me this. So over here, I'm gonna pass this, and now inside that we'll be proposing that, setting that body into this. So we'll just import that. Now the response is there, and now you can just say the response is something like this. Am I missing something? Try. Okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it should be something like this. Okay. So now what we did is basically we created a post request with a sign in endpoint. We set the body as request, and then we set the result based on the success. And that's basically how the this whole thing worked. Just change this to base URL. Okay. Now that is done. And the data remote data source now needs to be instantiated, and then we'll be using it. So now that's one thing that's there. Second thing is that we need to go to the um, repository section. We have this in the domain section, we have this repository. So we'll be creating one more repository and call that as user authentication repository, that I believe, or let's call it user repository. Okay. So user repository is there. And now inside that, the first function that we need to do is that basically we're going to create a suspend function and call it login. Okay, and we'll just pass email and password, and then in result what we need is basically we need a user, or perhaps we need a result, and that result should be user model. Okay, so that is the login request that we need. We pass some data into this, basically just a normal request section, and then in return we need a user model that should contain some relevant kind of data. And inside this, in the repositories, we will be now implementing this repository. So we are gonna do this user repository impl, and this is going to be a class. And now we are gonna say user repository. Let's import that. Once you import that, you will see something like this. Okay, now this user repository implementation needs some things. For example, it needs the data source, which is the remote data source that it will be using. And now this data source will help us fetch all the data. Okay, so what we did, okay, let me just say wall data source dot sign in, and then we need to pass the request. So the request is not created over here. So I'm gonna use the sign in request over here like this. We need to password. Okay. Now if it's basically the response that we get is this. It's success. We get this, and now we'll be using this response dot get or null. Okay. And now we know that basically the user should be there. And now from there you can just say user dot email, user dot first name. You get user dot not first name, it should be last name. And now we need this user dot token and this user dot id. Okay, now I did this, but do you think this is the correct way to do it? Okay, so now I did this basically. What we did over here is basically we have this user DTO, and then we did all these things manually. And for that, basically the mapper helps out, because you remember we had the mapper, and the mapper can help out over here. So basically, what you can do is that you can go over here into the mapper section, and like we have this travel listing mapper, will be creating the user mapper. Okay, like this. Now this basically is just simple. We'll be using to domain, and the DTO should be going to user model. No, sorry, DTO should be user DTO, and that is going to be user model like this. And that should be returning into this. And now we will just, okay, now you know that we don't have these things, so we can just get rid of that. I believe there is just auth token that we can. Okay, so that's that. For this again, you can use this, and for the other side you can use this. I guess to do to DTO is not possible because we are not using much information for in this case. Okay, so now this is that. Now there's just one more thing. Since the auth token comes from outside, you can always use the auth token as a separate variable. Since it's just for the, again, this is just for understanding, we'll get rid of the token. The token will not be used, but just for the understanding, you can use something like this, like this, and just this. Okay, so this is something that we did. Now we'll use this user mapper class in the repository implementation instead of using this whole these things. So instead I'm going to use user mapper dot to domain, and then you're going to pass user DTO, and then you can also user DTO dot token, user DTO dot user. Okay, instead let's just make it response so that it's easier to understand. Now what we did is basically we used the mapper, and then it went back to the this. So basically the login flow, the repository is also implemented, the user model, everything is there. Now we need to implement the user case, so use case. So now create a, we have this get all listing use case. I'll just change it to sign in use case, let's say. And what it requires is basically it requires user repository for us. And when we are executing, what we need to do is that we need to pass some data into this, basically be username as string, and then password as string as well. And then this is going to be not the flow, instead this is going to be a simple response. The result is basically, it is just returning this result. So we'll be using the same thing over here like this. Okay, and again this should be a suspend function so that it's easier for us. And then all you need to do is just repository.login, and then it will just do the rest of the job. Now the use case is there, and now we'll go to the presentation layer where we have the states, and we also have the view models. Now inside this section you have CC, we have this listing. Instead I'm going to create new and create a package, call it UI, or call it features. I believe features should be much more better. And now inside that, create a Kotlin class and call it sign in view model. That's one. And let me just create one more package, sign in. And the listing should also be part of this. So I'm just adding it over here. Then we have this section. And then inside this, we also have a UI state as well. So I'm going to use the same over here for the sign in as well. Sign in UI state. Now, this is basically my state object. Listing is not there. It should be user, and instead it should be saying the user model empty. No, it should not be empty. It can be null, but it should not be. Like this is loading error if there is any message, and this message is not required. Even the show empty state is also not there. It should not be shown to the user. Now we are there. The sign in view model should be a view model like this, and it also should have a use case. So I'm going to say private wall login use case like this. And now inside that we'll be creating some state. So I'm going to say private wall UI state mutable state flow like this. And then we'll be using wall UI state dot as state flow. That's that. Then we're going to create function. No, not function. Instead, I'm going to say private wall uh, email. Come on, email like this. Then we have a password like this, and then function on email change, function on password change. What else? I'm gonna give function sign in, and then we'll be using the sign in section. Now inside this, I'm gonna say view mod view model scope dot launch. Right now inside that, we need to do is do all the stuff that we need. So first thing is that the loading should be there, error message is null, then we'll execute it, and then basically on the successful case will you show something like this, on error case will show something like this, and that's that. I believe that's pretty much what we need. Okay. Okay, so the flow is there, and now we need to use this view model along with the UI that we created. So we go over here to the sign in screen. Where is my sign in screen? Common main, Kotlin, UI, sign in. So over here we have this. Right now we are not using anything. Instead, I'm going to say view model as sign in view model. Now over here, like I said, we need to make some adjustment, and let's say collect as state, and then we'll be saying wall email is equals to view model collect as state password collect as state, and now use this instead of these values. So we have something as email dot value. Over here I'm going to say view model dot on email change, we pass this. For password I'm going to use password dot value, and over here I'm going to say on view model dot on password change, and I'm going to pass that. What else is there? I i believe we just don't look onto this. We'll fix that later on. Okay, so now the sign in button, this on click should also be something as view model dot sign in. So once we do that, we have all this thing. Now basically there is just one more thing that we need to do, and that is basically the buttons should be enabled only when the sign in is basically it's not loading. So I'm gonna say enable is equals to view model. Sorry, it's going to be UI state dot value dot is not loading, so it should be shown only like this. Then we also show a circular progress indicator, and I'm going to say if UI state dot value is loading like this. Or instead, let's just do one more thing. Let's just do some cool thing, animated visibility like this, and we should show some sort of something like this. And then we also should show error message as well. So I'm going to say UI state dot value dot error message dot let. So like if there is some sort of error message, we should also show that to the user. And I think this is done. Now we need to do to run it. Now if you want to run it, it will not run because right now there are some issue. Let me just run it and show you. So when you run it, it will crash because the view model is not being passed into this. Come on. Coin view model. Okay, we need to do this and close this, build, and then rerun it. Now what happened is basically I created these classes, but I haven't like bounded them with the dependency injection, and we need to do that in order to make things work, right? So yeah, let me just run this once again. Now this time when I run it, the view model will not be able, like it will not be able to like find the view model. You see, crash. Okay, and if you go over here into the logcat, you will see that the error is related to the invocation of the view model, which is not available. Okay, sign in view model. So how do we fix that? So basically to fix that, we go over here to the DI section in the presentation module. Now over here, once again, what you need to do is that you can create a view model, call it sign in view model. And over here, you can define the use case as well. Sign in use case. That's that. Just import that. So the view model is there. Now this use case should also be part of the dependency injection, which is not right now. So we need to do that. To do that, what we need to do is we need to go to the domain section, and then in the DI section, remember we have this domain module. There is this one factory, just one listing. Now we need to make sure that we use the sign in case as well. And then for that, we need user repository. Now this user repository should also be part of the dependencies. So we need to pass that as well. And for that, you can use, go to the data section, and inside data section, there should also be DI. This data module, you have the single data dummy source and the repositories. You need to fix both of them. Over here, this is going to be user repository, and that is going to be user repository as this, and that is going to be dummy data source. Instead, I'm going to say remote data source. Okay, sorry, make it imp. Now that's done, and then we also need a single dummy data source. Instead, I'm going to say remote data source, and that is going to be also need a get. That also need require a get client for us. So I'm going to use that as HTTP client. Okay, and it also need a URL, so we can also use something like this. Okay, now this HTTP client is not there and the URL is also not there. So for that, we need to do is that basically we need to define that, and for that I'm going to say single. Perhaps you can also define HTTP client over here, and now over here you can just create the HTTP client that you have. So for that, install content negotiation like this, and then it over here inside that you can say JSON, JSON, and then define that what you need. Second would be to install the logging. So I'm going to say logging like this. And inside that you can say log level all, log level dot all, logger is equals to the default. And also you need to define the request kind of content type. So for that you can say default request, and now you can define over here as header something like this. You can always use the system defined values for this as well. HTTP headers dot content type, and then also for this, rather than using it a hard coded way, content type dot application dot JSON. So now we have this thing done. Now we need the URL. Okay, and for this you can say the base URL is not there, so we need to define it somewhere where from where we can access it. And for that, now if you go to the Android main section over here in the Kotlin and go over here into the main section, you will see the app module, and then over here you have all these things like presentation module, domain module, and then we also need platform specific module for this as well. So over here you can say, where is the app module created? Platform module as module, make it a func, and then we go over here, actuals, go to Android main like this, and then this is going to be module equals to module, and then you can say single, and that is string, let's call it HTTP 10.0.2 2.2 80 80 80, that is your base URL. And we do the same for iOS main as well. This time again, this is equals to module, and you see something like this. Now inside the main activity app modules over here, you also use platform modules as well, so as part of it. Or let's just use it like this over here. Now let's just try running it. Hopefully this will be able to work on it, and we should be able to run this. Okay, it just executed and we were able to do that. Now let me just try to log in. I'm going to customer one at travnor.com. Password is PASSWORD. Password 123 plus sign in. Okay, so it's signing. There's some issue with the serialization. So the next thing is that we'll be fixing that. So what we are gonna do is that we are gonna change that. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to enable serializations. Okay, so for serialization, what we'll do is that we'll go to the version dot toml file. So now over here, we need to add the serialization. Okay, so serialization, to enable serialization, we need to do two things. One is to add the dependency, and the other one is to add the plugins. Okay, so we'll do both of them. First one is this serialization. So I'm going to add this into it, and the version to be part of this. Secondly, is the plugin that we need to enable. So we need to add this. So basically, once we add these two things, we'll sync it. And now the serialization is only needed in the data section for now. We don't need it in the domain or presentation for now. So I'm just gonna enable it only in the data. Okay, so now it's done. Now we go to data build.gradle file, the build gradle file of data. And now over here, let's add the alias libs.plugin dot Kotlin serialization. So you need to enable this. Along with that, we also need to add the dependency for the serialization as well. So once you add these two, I guess we should be good. So the serialization, basically we have done that. And now once you do that, I believe this is the one. Okay. Now, what we need to do is that we need to go over here into the sign in response and make it serializable. Okay. And import that. Now, basically this will complain, which is fine. Now over here, we'll also make it serializable. And if you look into that, both of these files are basically part of the data part. So basically the serialization part is basically only done on the data, and the domain and the presentation is not yet um, able to basically use this. But for now, at least the basic functionality that we want, it should work. And then we'll see what else we can do. So let's see if this fixes the serialization issue. And once the serialization issue is done, then we'll hopefully be able to log in the user. But we definitely need to do some more. We need to cache the token and stuff as well, and also we need to revert the token that we added into the user model from the domain. But let's just wait for this now. Okay, now it's done. Now let me just try customer one at ravnor.com. Password is SSWRD123, I guess. Sign in request. I didn't do the sign in request. What do you see? Okay, so inside here, sign in response is, oh, sorry. I missed the sign in request. We need to make that serializable as well. Now let's just try once again. Okay, customer one at travnor.com, password, sorry, PASSWRD123, sign in. Now it says the unknown service exception. Okay, by there is again the clear text issue with Android. So basically, we need to fix the clear text issue, and along with that, we also need to add the permission. So uses permission internet. That's one thing, and we also need to add some network config. So network security config is going to be XML that network config. Now we need to create this file. So for that, we need to go to the resource, right click, directory, call it XML. Now inside that, create a XML resource, name it XML network config. Now we don't need this. Instead, we need something like this. Place it something like this, which will basically, what it will do is that it will clear text, permit the HTTP traffic to these two subdomains. Okay. Now try once again. Hopefully this time we don't face any issue. Oh, sorry. Now it should work. Okay, again, this time, hopefully this time it will work. Customer one at ravnor.com. Password is one, sorry, SSWRD123, password 123, sign in. Okay, and now it's saying that failed to connect to the local host. Why is it trying to connect to a local host? Isn't it odd? Now we need to go to the data source, remote data source. Now this is the base URL. The base URL comes to remote data source, data module. And we need to go to the platform module. So this is the iOS common main. Sorry, not this. In the Compose app, we need to check what base URL it is fetching. Now inside the coin di op module, http //10.0.22. This is that. It should take this one. And for the iOS main DI, it's trying this, which is fine. Now for some reason, it's taking this one. Shouldn't. Let's try once again. Let me just add some random email for now. Password 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sign in. Okay, so at least the URL is now fine, and it's saying that 404 not found, which is auth slash sign in response status 404. Now let's see why. Okay, let me just see what do we have. Oh, okay. So that's the problem. On the in the backend we have login, but we are trying to sign in. That's why it's basically causing issue, and that's a confusion. Now let's just try once again. No, basically I'm gonna say customer one at ravnar.com. Password is PASSWORD123. Sign in. And now this time when I sign in, you should we don't see any results over here, perhaps because of, just copy this, copy. But I believe if we go to the logs, we should see a success response somewhere. Okay, let's just try once again. In case of success cases, we're in that login screen, in case of success, when basically the user is there, what we'll do is that will basically show some sort of information on top of the screen. So let's say UI state dot value dot user. If it's not null, we just create some sort of, let's say we create a text, and we show the it dot to string into this. Now let's just try once again. This time when I log in, we should see some information for the user. Now you see the information is there. Instead, let's add it to the column. Try again. Customer one at ravno.com. Password is one, sorry, PASSWORD123. And when I sign in, you see that I got the user model and all this information is there as well. Now, basically, like I said, we don't need the token in the user. It was just for your understanding that the data model and the domain models can be different. And that's why basically I added that. But now, since I've shown you that, I'm going to take out that auth token from there, and we need to adjust the rest of the stuff accordingly as well, like the mapper and all. Okay, so we go to the data and source and mappers, user mapper. Now don't need this, so we don't need the tokens to be passed this way. Same goes for this one, and we get rid of this one as well. Now we should be good in this part. Okay, so this whole flow was basically for the login, and now we need to replicate the same flow, similar flow for the sign up as well. So to do that, what we need to do is that we need to go to the model. Since the sign up is pretty much similar, the request should be slightly different, but the repository, if we go to the repository section, oh sorry, we need to fix that as well first. Okay, now we need to go to the repository. Now we have this one. In the other case, we need to get a register as well. And now in this case, we might want to pass a proper model rather than this. So let's say I want to pass um, register register model, and in return, again, we need the user model. That is going to be request. So that's something we don't have the request. So what we need to do, we need to go to the register section, and we need to get this information from there. Okay. And now we get over here in the domain model section, create JSON and call that as register model. Okay. And when we create that, you should see, we should be able to import that over here. The register model contains these kind of information. It's email, phone, and by default, it should be empty. This should be customer, since it's going to be always this. Password should be there. Last name should also be an optional thing, and we can pass an empty out into that as well. Okay, now this registration model is there. Now what we need to do is that we need to implement the we basically created the one. Now we need to implement the rest of the functionality for that. And for also for that we also need to have a register functionality as well. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say register, and that is going to be register request. In return it should be sign in response because it is going to be similar one. Now for the register request we need to create another request over here. Create Kotlin file, go back, copy all this information that's there and place it. Call it register request. All right, and now we need to import that like this. Instead of signing, now we need register. So I'm gonna change that to register and call that register like this. We will use this. The rest is going to be similar. In return we are going to get response, which is fine. Now we go to the implementation. Over here we have a different kind of scenario. So for that we need a user mapper. Sorry, not user mapper. Instead we'll create one more mapper, and let's just use the same and call it uh, register request mapper. Okay, and now you are going to say register request, and that is going to be register model. Right, we need to pass this. The rest should be like this, and over here as well, like this. And it should also be reverse as well. So function to DTO, and that is going to be the reverse of that as well. Okay, now we have this ready. Mapper is there, and now we go back to the implementation. We got the request. We are gonna say return try catch ex exception, and then I'm gonna say something like this. Now over here we're gonna say wall response. Now the request is the problem, so for that what we need to do is that we need to map it. So I'm going to say register request mapper dot to DTO, and that is going to be the request that will pass. So now that's basically converted, and then in the response we got the user data. User is basically responded, and then this should be done. Now that's one thing. Now in the domain section, we have a sign in use case. Now we need a similar for register use case as well. So I'm going to say register use case. That's that. Now instead of this, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass request as register model, and return should be same. That's going to be register, and pass that request into that. I think once you do that, you should be good. Now we go to the presentation layer, source, Android main, no, not Android main, common main, features, sign in. Now we create one more, or instead what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the same one that I have for sign in. I'm going to change that to register, and we'll rename those. Now rename, call them register. Same goes for this one as well. That is going to be register as well. Now in the UI state, again, we need the UI, Boolean, and error, which is fine. For view model, there is slightly more information that we need. For example, we need name. So I'm going to say private wall underscore name is equals to mutable state flow for name. And we also need a confirm password as well. So I'm going to say private wall underscore confirm password like this. Now I'm going to say function on name change. Now over here you can add some validations. For example, if So you can say something like this: if the password are not matching, you can send an error response to that. And also that should be register use case. So change it to register use case like this. Now we gonna use that in return. I'm gonna create this request model like this. So it's not this. Instead, what it needs is it have a first name is equals to name. What do we have? It's a email, first name, last name. So email, first name, and password. First name, value, email dot value, password dot value. Confirm password is not required, and the rest of the information is also not needed because all of these should be auto collected. Okay. And what else? I think we are good now. We need to just update the UI based on that. So we go to register screen or sign up screen. If I'm not wrong, it should be register screen. Just go over here in the not presentation, in the UI. Common main, Kotlin, UI, sign up screen. We need this. Over here, we'll define the view model. So I'm going to say view model, register view model is equals to coin view model like this. And now we need to do the rest of the steps. I'm going to say wall UI state is equals to view model dot collect as state. Wall name is equals to UI state, not view model dot name dot collect as state. Then we have email, password, confirm password. What else? I think these are the one that we need. And now let's just reuse them all. So this is the first text field for name, and then over here it's going to be view model dot on name change it value. This is for that is for email dot value view model dot on email change dot it. That is going to be password dot value on going to be view model dot on password change it. Last one is confirm password dot value, and I'm going to say view model dot on confirm password change. And on click over here, I'm going to say view model dot register. Right now there is no function as register because I know the problem is different. We go over here, we change this to register, and I think the rest should be fine. Now again, we need to go through the DIs and define all those things as per the need. So the first thing is the presentation layer is this. We go to the DI section over here. You see it's register view model should be sign in view model. Okay, and then now we need one more, and that is going to be register view model, and that is going to be register use case. Okay, that's one thing. Then we go to the domain section. In the domain section, we need to update the use case, the use case that we created. So I'm going to say factory register use case, and then we need to define that. That's that. Then last one is going to be data, and in the data we need to define the repository. We already have the repository, I think. So data, we don't need anything to change, and I think we are good. Now what I'm going to do is that instead of showing the login screen on first load, we will show the sign up screen, so that register screen, so we can basically verify if the register is also working. What's the screen name? It's sign up screen. And we need to fix that. There is so much confusion between all this. Okay, now we good. Let's just try running the sign up flow. Now, okay, now we are over here. Now we got the this name. I'm gonna say Furkan. Email should be furkan@gmail.com. Password is 123456. Now you can see that's also working accordingly. Now when I click on that, I think it worked. Let's see if it worked. Let's see if this registration work. And now we go to the Travnor tables, select 100 rows. I don't see the user being created, which is mean that there was something wrong. Something happened. Okay, now we go to sign up screen and now let's see what happens. When user click on this, it should take user here. Okay, sorry, just need to add a couple more things like the error. So I'm going to say UI state dot value dot error message dot let, and then we need to show that. And also on top of that, we need to make animated visibility UI state dot value dot is loading, and we show this. We need this. Okay, try once again. I hope this time it will work. At least we'll show the error if there is any. I'm going to say Furkan. Now when it saves, okay, again, same issue, the serialization issue that we faced with the previous one. So we need to go to the data part, and the sign in request is there. It has a serializable, but the register request don't have that. So we need to make sure to add that. Rest should be fine. Now let's just see. Hopefully this time, this will be the last time we'll face this kind of issue. I'm gonna password 1234567 1234567 and now when I do that, okay, so it was an issue on the backend side, which is now fixed. Now let's just try again. I'm going to say Furkan and Furkan at gm.com. Password is 1234567 1234567. Okay, now sign up. And this time when I did, you should see now that the user should be created. So that we should see two users. One is that I created during testing, and one is the one that I created right now. You can see I created this Furkan at gm.com, and this was one that I created before. So which means now the flow is now working, and it has become quite a big, but like it, all the implementation is pretty simple and straightforward. And I'll see you in the next video. So till then, happy coding. Bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon so you don't forget any update. If you got any question, you can join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also, for quick updates and tips, you can follow me on Instagram. Until next time, keep learning, keep developing. Bye.